So it was the summer of 1989. I was in a taxi coming up this circular driveway. I looked up at this yoga institute where I was going to be for a month, and it was a rectangular, like Victorian-looking building with rows and rows of windows. Looked a little bit austere. This yoga institute or ashram, where they gave these month-long programs, and the brochure promised transformation. And I needed some transformation. I'd been in Jackson working hard for nearly 13 years, and I was a bit tired. My grant position had just ended. I'd had my second divorce, and I wanted to get out of where I was living, somewhere where I could just teach yoga. But I didn't know how. I mean, how do you do these things? How do you move out of state when you don't know anybody, and you don't have any money, and you don't have any savings, and you don't have any health insurance? How do you do these things? So I got out of the taxi, checked in, went up to my little monk room with a little bed. I looked out the window. Luckily, there was a lawn, and there were flowers, and so forth. There was a Swami. There was this picture on the brochure, but I didn't pay much notice because there were all these great teachers going to be doing my program. I wasn't really interested, in a Swami. But the first time that I saw him, he was walking down the corridor, down the hallway, in this fancy, expensive, tailored suit, black, shiny leather shoes. And as he passed, I noticed the most beautifully manicured fingernails. Nose in the air. I thought, no thank you. The next time I saw him was playing tennis. Every afternoon during the week, he played tennis. And he had these whitest of white shorts, white shiny top, this expensive-looking tennis racket, and he swung, and his gold watch flashed, and he looked like an Olympian god. Did I mention he was rather handsome? His devotees didn't miss a beat. And at the end, he would pat them on the head, and some of them would bow, and I was very uncomfortable, so I kind of stayed away. My teachers were great, but the third time I saw him was on Saturday night. On Saturday night, we had satsang. Satsang was when we gathered together, and the Swami told us stories and all kinds of interesting things. And he used to talk about running away as a little boy to the caves in the mountains to study with the Swamis. He told us fantastical stories that I was like, I may have been the most skeptical person at the ashram. And he sat cross-legged on like a throne in this maroon. It was a bit like a dressing gown, in his gown. He spoke with these smooth, honey, golden Oxford accent with Indian brogue woven in. It was quite hypnotic. Right before, though, was the best time of the week. We had kirtan. That was singing line after line. They'd sing, we'd sing. They being the people who lived there and knew all these chants. They were really the names of all these different aspects of God in Sanskrit. It didn't really matter if you understood them because they just sounded so great. I loved that. And during the day, I did yoga, psychology, yoga, psychiatry, yoga, whatever it was, nutrition, yoga, psychology, yoga, and yoga poses and meditation. One thing that we had to do was karma yoga. Karma yoga was really the chores of the ashram. So each day we had an hour in the morning, hour in the afternoon. I was a good student. I did everything I was supposed to. There were rules all over the place. No hair dryers after this, no this before that, no that before this. I was a good student. I worked hard. I just snuck out one night with some other people for pizza and beer. We didn't get caught. You weren't supposed to leave the ashram during your month. It was really a good time. I learned all these fancy words like chakras and mantras, and I learned how to do the fanciest headstand in the world. But at the end of about 3 weeks, I was beginning to think they promised transformation. I want some guidance, some insight, some transformation so that I can move forward in my life. I can find somewhere new to move to where I can just be a yoga teacher. Nothing's happened. No magic. So I was getting a little, but it was time for kirtan. So I was putting on my white clothes, ready to go and sing. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. I forgot. Everybody else was still. No dancing at this ashram. Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha. I hadn't danced in 3 weeks, and I thought, I can't wait for the Swami tonight. I just can't. So I left. You didn't leave. I left. I went up the stairs to my little room. I opened the window, and I could hear the music. Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha, Shivaya Namaha, Om Namah Shivaya. I span and I sang, and I just let off steam, and I had so much fun. And as the music began to get quieter, I closed the window, and I felt alive. And I thought, oh, I had this sort of feeling in my tummy, like, I thought, am I getting sick? And then I realized I was angry. I'd been here 3+ weeks, and I turned to my little white wall, and I said, Swami, I have a bone to pick with you. I have been here for over 3 weeks, and I have not got what I came for. You promised transformation. I know that I've ignored you. I know I haven't liked you. I know I've been rude about you. But damn it, Swami, there's something I want from you. Swami, sir, I want a multi-million-dollar moment. I want a moment of guidance, insight, clarity, transformation, so I can step out into a bigger canvas. And Swami, I'm only here for a few more days. I'm not going to come and grovel at your feet or prostrate myself. You are going to find me. I couldn't believe I'd said that. Oh my God. Oh my God. I was taught never to be angry at anyone, never to shout at somebody taller than me, never to shout at a man, an authority figure. Oh my God. I laughed and I laughed. I felt so much better after that. I lay back down in my little bed and I slept like a babe. The next morning, I got up and I did the meditation class and the yoga class, and I had my breakfast, chewing 100 times. I had my classes. And then I went for my karma yoga. So I was doing cleaning in the health wing, where people came for cures and drank juices and all kinds of stuff like that. I had my trolley. And the bottom of the trolley was all these cleaning fluids and stuff, and on top were all these piles of pristine perfectly folded white towels. I was coming out of a room, pulling my trolley. And suddenly, marching towards me down the corridor, was the Swami, looking mad as hell, marching straight towards me. I froze. He came right up to me and he said some words that made no sense. He said, "Lady," he didn't know me from Adam or Eve. "Lady, you are very, very rich." Rich? I don't be a rich bitch. Oh my God, rich. Oh my God. I looked at the towels and I thought, bit of humour. I said, "Yes, I'm rich in towels." I thought he'd laugh. He looked even more angry. He got a little closer. I could feel his breath on my face. His eyes weren't looking at me now. It's like they were looking at something in the middle of my head. And I got an image of, you know those old-fashioned clocks with the gears and the wheels? It was like he had this little pick and he was doing something in my brain. And I was like, Again, he said, "Lady, you are very, very rich." I happened to catch sight of my sock. My socks were multicoloured, lots of red. I thought, well, I'm rich in colourful socks. I thought, I'm rich in that T-shirt collection. I'm rich in friends. And I looked up to tell the Swami, I got it. But he wasn't there. He disappeared. I don't know how, I don't know where. But there was this scent, musky scent. But he was gone. I was stunned. I looked out of the window and I saw a tree and I thought, tree, I'm rich in trees and leaves. I'm rich in flowers. I'm rich in clouds. And I spent the rest of the day walking around the grounds like an absolute idiot saying, I'm rich in butterflies. I'm rich in flowers. I'm rich in resourcefulness. I'm rich in resilience. I'm rich in passion. And I had so much fun thinking of all the different ways that I was rich. So I went back to Jackson, gave away my stuff, planned to head off, full of the words of the Swami, who I appreciate tremendously for zapping me or whatever it was he did. I mean, who knows what, who knows how, who will ever know? Mystery, magic, who knows? Went home, was ready to go, and I suddenly thought, oh my God, what am I doing? Who am I? What do I think I'm? And I had a big anxiety attack. So I went to the college that was close by and sat at the lake. And as I looked at the lake, I looked at the tiny little ripples, and I saw the little sparks of sunlight on the ripples. I began to settle down. I remembered that image, that sensation, that experience at 23, with that endless black texture of velvety rich darkness. Those millions of lights. And that feeling of safety and connection. And I realized I was full of those sparks. And it was the same human being, people, everywhere I would go. And so, got in my little car, headed north, and arrived in Raleigh, North Carolina in January of 1990. Taught my first yoga classes in March of 1990. 35 years ago this month, and have been doing it ever since.